strengthening diplomatic relations and ensuring oversight of the heads of BRICS states are some of the key priorities of the 9th BRICS Parliamentary Forum. The gathering is being held at the Empress Palace in Kempton Park. For more on this story, let's bring in SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo, who's live for us from the Empress Palace. Khayelihle, good afternoon, actually good morning still. Just take us through what has been taking place now.
Well, certainly it's day 2 here of the BRICS Parliamentary Forum. Quite a number of important issues globally really being focused upon. As we just talked to you now, the commissions are really looking at a litany of issues from the issue of the acceleration of the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area to the issues of energy transition, a very big issue, especially for a country like South Africa. But joining us now is a Deputy Speaker at the National Assembly, Lechisa. So once again, sir, thank you so much indeed for your time. Looking at day 2 so far, what do you make of the discussions in terms of making sure that we're able to reach an understanding in terms of all these global issues that we face, for the parliaments to make sure that they hold the executive accountable, but also focusing on these key matters?
Well, we are glad that we are able to be receiving new members in the BRICS family of nations to expand the number of those that we agree with in the world about the governance concerns we have had all along with the traditional institutional governance that are undemocratic, that require to be transformed. It suggests that beyond those who have indicated their interest, there are others as well we know, we are aware of them being on the list, because they are equally concerned about what is happening elsewhere, and they see BRICS as a developing initiative with great potential. And yesterday we would have heard the reasons they gave about their concerns out there and what they had hopes for BRICS, the 9th Forum. What we are glad about is that today the session has gone into commissions as we speak now to consider the issues you have already indicated, so that we can go a bit deeper in the assessment of those collectively identified themes for today's session, so that coming out of these commissions, later on they are going to report back to the plenary session, and a brief discussion is likely to take place. And if not, we will also move on to what we hear from many of the presenters yesterday, heads of delegations. We are likely to be signing the Memorandum of Understanding. That incidentally was initiated by Honorable Baleka Mbete when she was Speaker in the past, but also which forum used to take place alongside in the sidelines of the executive meetings of the BRICS nations. So we are glad that South Africa is taking another significant initiative, not only organizing the BRICS Parliamentary Forum separate from the executive one, but also significantly to be agreeing to sign a cooperation agreement, some kind of formalizing how we are going to be working to hold the executive to account for what agreements have been taken, but also on a cooperative basis to educate the public about the necessity for us contributing towards removing obstacles to cooperation, whatever form they take, including doing work around the interactions between our borders. And I liked what the Chinese said yesterday about how mountains and or seas can't prevent countries and people who are convinced that they have a common agenda to sing from the same song sheet in advancing the interests of all of humanity. We do these things in order to advance the interests of each of our country's citizens and their interests. Already, as I've been saying, people have been interacting with one another in our countries as visitors in the tourism space, but also in the business environment where they have invested in our country. And in our countries, generally speaking, we have had exchanges at that meeting. This is why it is important to remember that even as we meet as parliamentary forum, initially, some of the people who proactively saw the need to meet was the international relations ministers of these countries that are meeting here, including the business forum, as well as the higher education ministers of education in these countries, because the human resource requirements are absolutely urgent in what we want to do: accelerate industrialization and create conditions for use of technology to interact across our boundaries, but also to ensure that we give absolute support for building infrastructure for the development of people's livelihoods in our countries. So this is an important moment today.
A very important moment, Deputy Speaker. What about the bread and butter issues? I mean, you talk about the economic cooperation. We do know that people all over the world are really going through so much, obviously emanating from Russia-Ukraine conflict, and we know that Russia is a BRICS member. What can parliaments do? And I do know that through the Inter-Parliamentary Union globally, there are some initiatives to try and bring the warring parties together to find a long-lasting solution. But what can these parliaments do to bring hope where there is pessimism?
Well, at a practical level, already, as I suggested, there are relations between some of us as BRICS family of nations. That includes the human resource development. There are people in our country, ordinary young people, who have taken the opportunity of bursaries that exist in Russia and in China, for example, to learn the languages they speak, to acquire technical information communication technology skills, to be able to make an impact in their livelihood. Many of these remain in place. With appropriate support, we would like to see many more taking advantage of such human resource capacity development, but also reinforcing our own human resource development in the country, in South Africa. Initiatives are underway to do that. It is also important that once we reach agreements such as we will agree today, that some of the removal of obstacles to jobs and cooperation are done fast, because the necessity for accelerating the African Free Trade Agreement is precisely in order to impact on people's livelihood. Companies in South Africa that are able to operate in China and or in Brazil and or in Russia are able to keep jobs and expand those jobs in South Africa. That's the bread and butter issue I think you are referring to. So that people are concerned about retaining their jobs, about getting jobs, those who are unemployed, but also advancing, for example, the emancipation and development opportunities for women worldwide. And the intention is to accelerate those programs through this cooperation. As neighbors, it is important that we act in order to advance each other's mutual concern, use the wisdom that we each have to contribute towards solving the problems that people are concerned about, including water-related issues, concerns, including energy-related issues, which is on the subject for discussion today, and peace. The chairperson of the task force of the Inter-Parliamentary Union is also here to support, I guess, Madam Speaker of the National Assembly, who is also part of the task force. There are three of them, I think, if I'm not wrong, who are present in this meeting in order to contribute when they meet together on how they can accelerate bringing about peace, persuading parliamentarians in Russia and in Ukraine that peace is the only precondition for development. The military support the Ukrainians are getting is a problem in that it accelerates unnecessary war and fatalities in a way that prohibits the advancement of peace. And we would like to see peace reign for development to take place. It's a precondition for peace. So part of what BRICS is established to do is to help contribute towards resolving conflicts and bringing about peace for the advancement of all of humanity.
And just before I let you go, Deputy Speaker, a very sad day for South Africa. We remember the late former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Aziz Pahad, someone who really served in terms of fighting against apartheid, someone who spent his adult life making sure that the attainment of democracy in South Africa becomes a reality. Maybe just your reflection and your thoughts. At some point, he was a Member of Parliament.
Indeed, this is a sad moment, especially this couple of days we are meeting here on international relations, a subject in which he was an expert. And so both as Parliament, I can say this, that we feel we have lost part of what we were beginning to call alumni. Some of those MPs who, like him, were pioneer MPs, but also had capacity they generate over years of the struggle, and therefore we're able to continue to feed it into our international relations and domestic approaches to difficult issues. We have significant, like perhaps not like the family. The family must be devastated, losing a second member of the family after Aesop, his brother, also died a couple of months ago. We really wish to convey our condolences and hope that they'll be comforted that we retain the aims and objectives for which he fought and the contributions he made in our parliamentary work in a variety of capacities. He was always a pleasant person to be around. We will miss his sense of humor. As an activist inside Parliament and outside of Parliament, he dies. I'm aware of some of his writings in which, with others, they try to explain the roots of some of our problems inside the country, and they were doing so to advance a deeper understanding of those problems and what possible solutions may arise. We hope that his colleagues who co-wrote some of those writings will continue that important work to advance our understanding of our situation better. But the most important message for us is condolences to the family. We hope that time as a great healer will serve them well.
All right. Sir, thank you so much indeed for your time. Of course, I'm Mfundo, that's the Deputy Speaker for the National Assembly, really reflecting on the life and times of the late Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, Aziz Pahad, really talking about his sense of humor, reflecting about the person that he was, his passion for international relations, and coincidentally, here at the BRICS Parliamentary Forum, that's a very major talking point.